Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. So I thought I was all finished with my Master Replicas dedicated lightsaber reviews, but I was not completely correct. And the main reason is because even though I had done a review of this lightsaber before, in fact, my very first video review of a Master Replicas lightsaber was this very hilt. This is, of course, the Revenge of the Sith Darth Vader lightsaber. And the reason I reviewed this 4 years ago is because that was when Galaxy's Edge first opened at Disneyland. And one of the experiences was going to a place called Savi's Workshop, where you got to build your very own lightsaber. And unlike some of the previous experiences in Disneyland, for instance in Tomorrowland, right when you exit Star Tours and go to the gift shop, and you would build a lightsaber, those were kind of like cheap plastic. And in this case, for Galaxy's Edge, they kind of, plussed it to the next level. So you got to actually make it out of metal and resin and things like that with a real kyber crystal. It was actually, pretty cool experience. And so since I had made a couple of those, I wanted to compare and contrast the lightsabers that you had built at Savi's Workshop with a really, really classy display, lightsaber. And at the time, I chose to use my Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Darth Vader hilt. And so while that was my very first review, it was kind of truncated. It was a very short review, only about, I think, 10 minutes dedicated to this hilt. And then I actually brought the Savi's Workshop lightsaber into the frame and sort of comparing and contrasting. So it wasn't really, I think, a very good review of what, Master Replicas is about. And for a first video review of a Master Replicas lightsaber, it was, pretty shoddy in my opinion. And of course, I hadn't gotten into like a rhythm. This was a rhythm and a format I kind of developed over making, 29 plus lightsaber reviews over the past year, both EFX and Master Replicas. I had kind of gotten into a format, and that didn't really follow the format, where I kind of rotate the lightsaber with the acrylic display case, and then I would put the black background on without the display case. And then we would go deeper into the certificate of authenticity, which I didn't do on that video, and then look at the plaques and things like that. And so I felt that I had to redo the review and give this Vader lightsaber the attention that it deserved. Now, in addition to that, of course, you can see right front and center, there was another reason to redo the review, is that this was one of my first signatures, which I got from Hayden Christensen, and this is authenticated by JSA. You can see the authentication sticker actually in the front of the signature plaque, and I got this through GalaxyCon. So this is yet another reason to revisit the lightsaber, just because there's something new actually to show off. When I did this 4 years ago, I certainly didn't have that. And also, of course, I didn't really understand or appreciate the lore or the background. I wasn't nearly as into lightsabers and Master Replicas collectibles back then as I am today. This was after all 4 years ago. So I wasn't quite, understanding of what these plaques meant. I think in the last, that last video 4 years ago, I wasn't even sure whether a signature edition existed of the Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith Darth Vader lightsaber. So that just kind of showed, again, my ignorance and lack of understanding. So definitely, a good opportunity to revisit things. So as you can see, I'm rotating the display. This is indeed the Revenge of the Sith Darth Vader lightsaber hilt. One of the later ones made by Master Replicas. You can tell that this was released in November of 2005. So, getting close to the last couple of hilts that they made. I have it displayed like this because the custom signature plaque is quite long, and then squeezing the two separate plaques, one the actual limited number and the other one the limitation plaque, like those two plaques and the center custom signature plaque just simply wouldn't fit in the length of this base. And so, as with the Anakin, Anakin Skywalker from Episode 3 and the Obi-Wan from Episode 3, you have to place these two slightly back in order to fit these. So in any case, that's, here you go. I have some memories of this hilt. Now, in my opinion, of all of the Darth Vader hilts, I actually kind of like the design of this one the best. Whatever you want to say, about the prequels as movies, you have to give them props that from a design aesthetic, they really went above and beyond for the lightsaber, hilts. I thought that the Phantom Menace was, maybe a little bit underwhelming. I didn't think that Qui-Gon's was all that impressive. Darth Maul certainly didn't. Maybe Obi-Wan's was kind of cool looking, but then, they kind of, for Episode 2, they kind of, really hit their stride or really unveiled some amazing ones. Mace Windu's, for example, was first introduced in Attack of the Clones. The gorgeous, kind of samurai sword version of the original Vader MPP with the Hayden Christensen signature edition version, Attack of the Clones Anakin. Really, really nice, sort of like the light side version of the original Star Wars New Hope Vader hilt. That came out in Attack of the Clones. And then, of course, the amazing, pistol grip of Count Dooku, all chromed out and blinged out. So, I think Attack of the Clones really jumped up a level. And then Revenge of the Sith just went bananas. It had so many beautiful, beautiful hilts. We got Darth Sidious, we got Obi-Wan, Jedi Master version, kind of beginning to, you can see it beginning to evolve into the final version that we see in Star Wars A New Hope. And then, of course, the amazing Anakin, the precursor to the classic, lightsaber that we see Luke wield in Star Wars A New Hope. And then this, the Darth Vader lightsaber, which is in essence the precursor to the Star Wars A New Hope, Vader. And technically this hilt, I believe, wasn't even seen in the movie. I think it was basically shown as a prop in some of the, later promotional materials. And so, this hilt is kind of special in the sense that it wasn't really, it was created and designed and made, but never actually even seen on film. And so, I really dig this, and we'll be able to examine it in more detail once I actually take it out and you can see it in macro view and all of that. But, for sure, I really, really loved this when I got it. But when I first got it, I don't think I treated it with the respect it deserved, because in my mind, it just simply didn't have the legacy, or the history of the original trilogy hilts. Way back then when I bought this, I bought this a long time ago, over a decade ago. This was before the sequel trilogy, obviously, by Disney. It was after the prequel, and back then, there was just still way more love for the original trilogy. It didn't really have that same level of respect for the prequels. I didn't really like them that much, and so props from those movies did not rank as highly, right? I wasn't able to separate I wasn't able to separate admiring the beautiful aesthetics of the prop versus my personal lack of enthusiasm for the material in the prequels. So I remember buying two of these off the secondary market. Back then, as with a lot of collectibles, you go through ups and downs, peaks and valleys. And at the time, Master Replicas was going through a little bit of a valley in terms of secondary pricing. They released a whole bunch of these. If you look at the limitation here, you'll see that they actually made 3,000 of these guys. Okay, so there was a lot of them. And I actually remember, having a situation where I think I bought two because one of them didn't come with a acrylic case, but it did come with like a plaque. And so I was actually cobbling together a set, from different sources. And I actually remember driving to the Irvine Spectrum in Orange County because I had an extra lightsaber and I didn't need it because I was cobbling together those sets. And I remember giving another version of this lightsaber and just handing it to somebody in the parking lot of the Irvine Spectrum. And I think I let it go for like $200 or something absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it wasn't even he just basically handed me some money. He handed me, I think, $200 in 20s or something, and we just called it a day. And I just gave him he just walked off with a hilt in his hand. Maybe he was just going to use it and strip it for parts and take it apart. So that just shows you, how things have changed in master replicas collecting in those 10 years. So here it is. It's got everything, and at the time I didn't really understand the situation with the signatures and the plaques. So before going into that, let's take this out of the way, and then let's put our background so we can admire it from afar. So one of the cool things about the prequel trilogy lightsaber designs is how, like, whenever possible, the design team would look at the original trilogy hilts, and then when it was their turn to do the prequel version, they would sort of go backwards, and they would give us a design that's, first of all, more appropriate for the old Republic, where the Jedi Order was at their very, very height, before being destroyed by the Emperor, and to show us hilts that reflected that, but yet would also pay homage to the original trilogy hilts when appropriate, and give you that little tiny hint that the prequel design, it would eventually evolve into the final forms that you see in the original trilogy. Now, of course, they couldn't do that for everything, because there was a lot more characters and a lot more Jedi in the prequels. But whenever possible, they attempted to honor that. You see that with, for instance, the Anakin Skywalker lightsabers, both from Attack of the Clones, were sort of reminiscent of Vader's New Hope lightsaber. And obviously with Anakin Skywalker's Revenge of the Sith version, we can clearly see it, and all of the highlights and all of the aspects of that lightsaber that reminded you of Luke's lightsaber in A New Hope, since that hilt was going to be passed on to him, right? That's why Obi-Wan gave it to him in A New Hope. And so similarly, when you see this design, it's very elegant, very stylish, very beautiful, very luxurious, as you would expect, again, from lightsabers from the old Republic days. But in its design, it again sort of hints at what's to come when you see Vader's classic, a lightsaber hilt that was taken from an MPP flash gun. And that was one of the things that I appreciate so much today that I didn't really appreciate back then. When I bought this when I bought this over a decade ago, even when I reviewed it, 4 years ago, I wasn't nearly as well versed in all of the different, aspects of lightsaber design and what each of the parts came from. All of that knowledge I picked up actually within this past year as I began to collect these lightsaber hilts, definitely, with more seriousness and with more intensity. So doing so, I really do kind of appreciate all the different tweaks and all the different things that I see here. And we'll show that when it's time to look at the hilt in more detail. This is, of course, the standard mirror base and acrylic case that Master Replicas released in their later hilts. And let's kind of start off by taking a look at what comes with this lightsaber hilt. So number one, here you go. Oh man, here we have the same problem. So Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Darth Vader lightsaber. This is number 1302. So believe it or not, I'm using like an iPhone 15 Max. It's supposed to be one of the best cameras ever, but it has a really hard time, if you can believe it, focusing on focusing on macro. I have to actually change the zoom so then it'll pop into view and you can see it in a bit more detail. So there you have the first plaque and the limited edition. And then later on they released the second one, which is the actual worldwide edition of 3000 and the date that this was created. This is the plaque that's really hard to get. Of all of the Revenge of the Sith releases, they all have a worldwide edition plaque, but not all of them, not all the people actually have them. So it's pretty difficult to get this one. I mean, everybody gets this one, but it's difficult to get this one. Now, why is it difficult to get this limitation plaque? I've just been learning more and more about it, over time. And I always thought that basically, they never were going to release it. And then when they did, and all the plaque showed was just the limitation number, I thought that the fans were, Master Replicas customers were unhappy because previous releases obviously had both the number and the limitation. It would say, for instance, 1302 /3000. And in response to that sort of backlash, Master Replicas eventually had to correct and make a separate plaque just to put the worldwide edition. That's what I thought. But another Star Wars collector, on his channel, a pretty big one, Star Wars Replicas, he mentioned the fact that in some instances, Master Replicas did not actually even set the edition size initially. In other words, they were selling these lightsabers without an edition size. I mean, at that point, it was, I guess, an open edition size. They weren't sure how many they were going to make. And only later on, when they finally set the edition, then they created this plaque right here to, again, let you know that this is the final edition. And in order to get that plaque, that's where you would have to send in for it, and they would mail it to you. And a lot of people were too lazy or didn't do it. So that might be another explanation for why there are so many sets without that second plaque. But suffice to say that if you don't have this plaque, then technically it's not complete. And there's still people even today on the Facebook forums who are looking for this worldwide edition plaque. Some for Anakin, some for Obi-Wan, and they're not easy to find. They're hard to get, and sometimes you're gonna spend quite a bit of money on them because most people don't want to sell them. And why would you want to sell it to break up your set? And then you're basically praying that somebody actually just has a random worldwide edition plaque just lying around. So that's pretty unusual. And so this is actually the custom version. You can see that's made beautifully by Ariel of AM Custom Plaques. You can see the Darth Vader lightsaber, the episode, and then Hayden Christensen and Hayden's beautiful signature right here. And then in this case, you can see the number WGC000132. If you go to the JSA website, it actually will allow you to check it up, and you can see that it is authenticated. This is one of my first custom signatures that I got, and I have to say I'm very, very pleased. And just kind of seeing it here, having this signature plaque just kind of adds so much class, to the display. I think, I didn't tape it. At the back of this, there is a double-sided tape, but again, it displays so well that I decided not to actually put it on the tape, not to utilize that double-sided tape. In this case, of course, they put the authentication sticker in the front. If they had done it in the back, as the SWAU and Official Pix does, then for sure I wouldn't be able to use glue or double-sided tape because you want to have that, obviously available to see. But luckily the stands actually come with a little bit of a recess, so it, definitely stays long enough without having to use adhesives. So here's the certificate of authenticity. This comes actually both with the bag where the original plaque came in, as well as the mirror wipe. And actually, I kept how to clean the acrylic. And then we have the actual certificate of authenticity here for the Revenge of the Sith prop replica. So again, all of these back in the day, they all came with a microfiber cloth, they all came with the paperwork. And certain sets had different levels of completeness in terms of all the paperwork. But in this case, of course, the most important is always the certificate of authenticity. So in this one, I actually put in the JSA certificate of authenticity. You have the number, and this tells you that the autograph was signed in the presence of a JSA representative exclusively for GalaxyCon. So you see there, GalaxyCon, and you can actually, it tells you the website to actually go to enter this number so that you can authenticate it. So it's very important, this extra little bit of paperwork that I put in. So here we have the certificate of authenticity for the Darth Vader, Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. And on this side, I'm going to see if I can just focus it up a little bit. So you can see this is sort of the generic certificate of authenticity. I like the fact that this is embossed in red instead of gold to kind of differentiate, the Revenge of the Sith. But here it's back embossed in gold, and then there's the gold seal. So I like that. I think that's classy. But again, Mr. Rothman and Mr. Vogel did not put their signatures on the side, and this does not tell you specifically that it is a certificate for Revenge of the Sith Darth Vader. On this side, here we have Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, Darth Vader lightsaber, Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, and I'm going to just slowly move on up so you can read it for yourself. This part here in Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, the prop department has taken previous versions of Vader's iconic weapon of ultimate evil and amalgamated them seamlessly into one. It's got aluminum, copper, gloss black midband, and shroud. It approximates the antique camera flash of the original classic. So they did actually have a filming prop to reference when they made it. But again, this was never actually seen in the movie. You do see Vader at the end of the movie, but I don't believe you're ever able to get a shot of the actual hilt itself. So let's move this on up. Let's get back to the regular magnification. So here it is. This is the Revenge of the Sith Darth Vader lightsaber hilt. So let's just start from the very beginning. I'll show you the emitter. So I do like the fact, again, that it gives a little bit extra detail. You can see the mirror finish. You can see the the inside detail of the emitter. So that's really, really nice. And then you can see this entire area kind of replicates the shroud of the MPP flash gun of the original Darth Vader from A New Hope. But here, it's actually, more of a rectangle with more edges, hard corners, versus the old one. So again, because they didn't have to worry about the limitations of the MPP flash gun, they were able to make it their own. Here you see the little copper details right over here. This looks like a dice, actually, right? It looks a little bit of like a dice. And then here again, more details, copper, all of this. And then you have the control box. You have the etching right over here, and then you have sort of the recreation of the lever from the original as well. Here's the clamp box again in all its glory, and then 7 of the hilts, and then the cover tech clip that's in all of the Revenge of the Sith lightsaber hilts. Then you have the pommel, and then over here, again, really hard to focus. I have to touch it just a little bit. You can see Master Replicas Inc. And then you can see Lucasfilm Ltd. Really, really nice. And then kind of the pommel actually has this little like glass knob at the very end, which is pretty unique to this lightsaber hilt. So there you have it. One of the interesting things about this is that this is like a dust magnet. There's little bits of dust here and there. You can't really see it at this level, but if you go in deep enough or close enough, which I think I'm going to try to do, you can definitely kind of tell a little bit. You see a little bit of hair right here. If you go deep enough, you can definitely tell. So, but luckily this does not. I don't believe it has the rubber kind of coating that so plagued the earlier hilts, which you would have to strip off with alcohol if you wanted to get rid of it. Here's the mirror sheen of the chrome plating. Here's the copper. Really, really beautiful. So yeah, I mean, it pays homage to the original Vader hilt, but it doesn't completely copycat it. It just looks more refined, right? Like everything from the Old Republic just looks a little bit cleaner, like less weathered, a little bit nicer, Let's go back to regular magnification. So one of the interesting things about this is that, as you can see, all of these T-tracks, that make up the grip is like glued. And I actually discovered while I was looking at this, remember I used to handle this without any gloves. 4 years ago when I did my initial review of this lightsaber, I actually handled it without gloves, which is, of course, it really makes me wince when I see my younger self doing that. Obviously this, review is with gloves. I actually had wiped and polished it with a microfiber cloth before doing this review. But at the time I had mentioned that, I felt like it was just amazing that over the better part of a decade, even though I had handled it without, gloves, that there wasn't more rust or discoloration or damage over the years. It kind of shows you that you can be as careful as you want to be. You can be as careful as you can possibly be. But that really your environment makes the most difference, because I live in a desert climate, very, very low humidity. And so, this thing was basically as good as new, even though 10 years ago I had touched it, or 4 years ago I touched it without gloves. And I'm sure I had handled it without gloves as well. But I wasn't completely right. I mean, there actually was a little bit of issue with age, but not because of touching it. Believe it or not, I don't know if you guys have ever had this happen to you. I'm almost certain that you have. But, have you ever had like a bad battery? And then you leave the battery in for like years, and what happens is the battery actually almost like explodes, and all of the insides come out and bubble out and creates this sort of really kind of toxic, nasty stuff that boils out. Well, this is something that actually happens with the glue that they use to glue these grips. And here, even though you can't really see it now because I cleaned it up, the glue over time had actually begun to boil out of the T-tracks. You can actually see it. It looked pretty bad. I mean, I actually took a toothpick and gently scraped the dry glue off of the rubber T-track, and I wiped it with alcohol to get rid of it, so that at this point it's unlikely that you can actually see any of that. But you can definitely see the yellowish, brownish glue again bubbling out from underneath. It just goes to show you, these things were made close on to 20 years ago. I mean, this one technically is like 19 years. And it's kind of amazing how well they've kept their quality over all this time. But there are limits, and if this is what's happening where I live, definitely if you're living like more humid areas, this is something that you can also sort of have to be aware of. So we're looking at some closer details. It's kind of interesting. I'm still learning to kind of work with the oddities of this phone. I guess if I zoom out and back in, it somehow switches the camera so that it's able to at least focus super close. So I'm going to take advantage of that. As you can see here, all of this detail. Again, taking the accidental detail of the original MPP flash gun and then just refining it, making it look better, making it look more sleek, more stylish, stuff like that. Finally, I'm able to give you a nice view of the interior of the emitter without it being all blurry. So there you go here. Just really, really beautiful. A little bit of color here with the copper. So that's a nice touch. And then instead of the bubble strip from the Texas Instruments calculator, it now has this sort of very classy etching that you can see here as well. And then the lever on the side, no nail through it. And then the rubber grips. And I really like the center, like glass, the black glass eye right here. So overall, definitely a gorgeous saber, super heavy, super tactile, really, really nice. I mean, I understand and respect, of course, the original Vader hilts. These are some of the most iconic hilts, right, in film. Let's decide how we're gonna do this. I think this is probably the best way. Gotta make sure. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. And then let's put the signature right here. The worldwide plaque goes right here. This goes here. So we're going to move it a little bit so it's centered. It's kind of how I like to present it. When you polish the mirror base, it's so slippery that just turning it on my turntable will move the plaque. But as I slowly move it around, yeah, I mean, I definitely respect the fact that, for many, the iconic Vader hilts will always be number one just because they're from the original trilogy. And obviously, those were signed. Now, of course, I can say with authority, I know exactly what sabers are signed, what sabers are not signed. So obviously, Hayden Christensen never signed, this version of the Vader hilt, sadly speaking. But as you can see, I rectified that by getting a custom signature from him. Almost 18 years later, we achieved that. But, let's flash in, flash out. But I have a soft spot for this one. I mean, I think this is such a beautiful, iteration of the Vader hilt. I quite like it. I mean, it will never have the legacy of the original. And probably when we're talking about, if we're talking about Vader, we're really talking about the New Hope version. I mean, The Empire Strikes Back was a little bit different than A New Hope. And, we all know about the story behind the Return of the Jedi. I mean, I think that was a really interesting design historically. But, we all know that the reason that looked so different was because essentially they had to cobble together something because props are just basically walking off set from the first two movies, and they were sort of, in a bind. And so in reality, Vader, you're looking at the MPP flash gun base. That's just one version of that with some very minor changes from Empire versus A New Hope. And then you have this one, which is a homage to that original one. And I really like this one. I kind of like this one better, actually, than the New Hope and Empire Strikes Back version, which is probably heresy to a lot of lightsaber enthusiasts. But I don't know, I just kind of, there's something about it where it's like, it reminds me of the original MPP, the shroud, all that, but just elegant, refined, beautiful. I really like this, again, even though we never even get to see it on screen. Well, there you have it. I'm going to take the black background off so we can put the acrylic case back on where it belongs. We'll twirl it one more time. So now I feel like I finally did this hilt proud, did it right, did a review correctly, gave all the information, did it in the format that all the other hilts are. I can now rest in peace that I show you all of this. And also that I can speak with just more knowledge, right? More knowledge, more authority. I can actually know what the certificate, and I showed you what the certificate of authenticity said. I gave you some, information. Here's the two plaques. We got a beautiful custom Hayden Christensen signature plaque that really just makes this hilt so much nicer, in my opinion. All these custom signature plaques just elevates the limited edition so much better. I do wish there was signature editions for all of them, but sadly there's only 11, and we're trying to fill the gaps in for the others. But yeah, I have the signature edition front and center. This was signed by Hayden just this year, so hot off the press, so to speak. And I hope you agree that it looks absolutely gorgeous, all put together like this. And this finally is it, my very last. Fitting that this saber started the YouTube lightsaber journey for me, and it's the one that ends it as well. Number 29, until of course the EFX Ahsoka dual lightsabers come out. But for now, this is the beginning of the end. And my next videos will be going back to Predators and statues and things like that. And I'm going to, in my head, be thinking about a way to rank all 29 master replicas and EFX hilts that I own from top to bottom. So I'll do a video of that, and I'll do a video showing all of them above my 3 fireplaces. And that's how I'm displaying them, at least right now. So until then, I hope you enjoyed this. My journey now finally does come to an end. Do take care.